Welcome to LilliHouse, where we ask you to join us in our living room for family movie night. You may hear a dog bark, a cat meow, or a baby cry, but that's because we want this podcast to feel like an authentic evening in our home. So, put on your comfiest pajamas, get cozy under a nice warm blanket, and let's talk about some movies. I am once again joined by my two lovely co-hosts, my brother Sam, my wife Missy. How are we doing tonight, fam?
Feeling good. Feeling happy.
Wow. Great.
Yeah, we're in a good time in our lives, and yeah, I think.
I'm feeling overwhelmed by the holiday season.
Yeah, well, by the time this podcast comes out, we'll have been past that already. So that's cool.
Past the holiday season?
Correct.
I can't wait for future me to experience that.
And shout out to all of our future listeners, if you're out there. This is our first podcast episode based on the films of Greta Gerwig.
Yes, sir.
Which is very exciting. Obviously very topical, top of mind in a lot of ways in the industry right now for the gargantuan hit that was Barbie. But not too long ago, before that time, Greta Gerwig released her first solo directorial venture, Lady Bird.
Oh.
But my super secret, sneaky side question is this the first time that she's directing a movie, period?
I know the answer.
Miss, do you know?
I feel like usually when you ask a question like this, the answer is no. Like, why would it be so easy as, like, yes, it is? You know what I mean?
That's a great point.
Like, so I know she went to school, but she went to school for acting.
And dance.
Dance. So
Shout out to Barnard.
maybe I'll just, I'll do the opposite of what I think you're trying to get me to do.
Okay.
And I'll say, yes, it is her first directorial film.
So, Sam, I'm guessing you're saying no.
No.
And technically you're both right. Because, like I said, this is her first solo directorial debut. But she did previously co-direct an independent film called Nights and Weekends in 2008. It was co-written and directed by her and a gentleman by the name of Joe Swanberg, who I'm not as familiar with, but it was a very low-budget thing with the two of them being in a relationship and starting to be long distance and things get complicated. It's I know nothing else about the film. I was trying to make a statement about like the quality of the film, and to be honest, I have no clue. Could
be bad, could be good.
Yeah, it's a very small one, but it's interesting that was sort of her first foray, in a way, to directing, because as we'll get into with this conversation, and I don't know to what extent you guys agree with me on this, but this is a pretty impressive first film, I would say.
I agree.
Yeah, and we'll sort of dig into the potential reasons why on the outside, but also dig into the inside of the film itself also. So, without further ado, let's get into our trigger warnings for Lady Bird, released in 2017. This movie has a little bit of gaslighting, some complex parent and child relationships, some underage drinking, and smoking, and sex, and some issues dealing with depression. A little more subliminally under the surface, but it's still a part of the text, so it is useful to mention. All that being said, Missy, we're gonna start with you. What do you think of Lady Bird?
Scared.
So I've seen this movie twice. One was in the theater when it came out.
Yeah, we saw it together.
We did see it together.
Wow.
One of our
you guys were together.
One of our
later in
earlier
the year.
movie
Was that
theater
our
experiences.
first movie theater experience?
No, our first movie theater experience as a couple was Baby Driver.
Oh.
Okay.
which was a good time. Now it's a little bit complicated given the people involved, but
Yeah.
it was a great time.
So yeah, early in our relationship, we saw this in the theater, and I liked it. It was a little. I usually say to Gabe that coming of age films aren't like my favorite type of film. I usually like a more traditional storyline that has like a overranging arc, and or like a climax, and like I don't necessarily like just like a let's go through the timeline.
Slice of life.
Yeah, a slice of life. That's a good way to put it. But on this second rewatch, because we just rewatched this for the purpose of the podcast, I really liked it a lot better. I think I was watching it in a way where I was appreciating Greta Gerwig's work. And our cat is trying to knock a container off the counter. But yeah, I was watching it in a way where I was appreciating what Greta Gerwig was doing. I was appreciating Saoirse's performance as Lady Bird. Who's the actress that plays the mom again?
Laurie Metcalf?
Laurie Metcalf is amazing. The guy that plays the dad is amazing. So I was kind of looking at different aspects of the film through this rewatch, which made me like it better. But if I just had to like say, this slice of life film as a thing is not necessarily my favorite movie genre.
Okay.
Now, Sam, correct me if I'm wrong, but coming of age you're a big fan of that kind of movie.
Yeah.
So sort of an inverse situation to Missy.
It definitely is. I'm a huge fan of, as I mentioned before, slice of life films. I think you can capture elements of the human spirit in films that maybe just kind of bring you into a point in people's lives. And I find it like also more challenging for myself to watch it because it's not as traditional. And that does, some coming of ages vary in plot structure and how much kind of plot there is. Some do have like specific end goals to them, But in the case of Lady Bird, this is a coming of age movie that really kind of brings you in at this ending of a period of this girl's life, Lady Bird's life. It goes through this whole ending process and then ends at a beginning. And that was something that was executed just extremely well for Greta Gerwig's solo directorial debut. I remember before this film came out, I was just very excited because I already loved her work as an actor. Movies like Mistress America and Frances Ha, both Noah Baumbach directed movies, which, she is in a relationship with that man. Mm-hmm. And and those movies are some of my favorites, especially Frances Ha, which I feel like is kind of can be described similar to Lady Bird in terms of being a period in someone's life, and a transition time in someone's life. So I think, for her to get behind the camera and really tackle this movie, and this being her first showing, extremely amazing time watching this. I've seen it probably 3 or 4 times now. I love this movie, and it's definitely one of the best movies in the stacked year that it came out in.
Oh, yeah, we'll get to that, too.
And in terms of coming of age, it's definitely one of my favorites.
Wow. So, high praise.
Yes, sir.
All good points.
Yeah, absolutely.
I got high praise for this one.
All right. This is going to be an
Watch out.
interesting conversation. Not to say that I dislike this movie by any means. I think it's like I said, an impressive first film. And I think while there's a lot of things that are impressive about it, I do think that there are aspects of it that definitely scream out first feature. We can dig into the specifics of that because this is just sort of general thoughts at the outset here. But for me, I wouldn't say that since we last saw it in the theater, I enjoy this movie any more or any less than when we first saw it. But I do still very much appreciate a lot of the craft, especially as it pertains to the acting. I think as an actor, I think Greta Gerwig has a real sense of creating an environment for her actors that is really challenging but also rewarding, and you see it through in the movies, that sensibility, and we'll see it with her two other movies that we're going to discuss on the pod, that it just feels different because of the way that she conducts her sets. It feels much more like a sort of friends doing a thing together in a way, as opposed to like a job, which I think there's a major distinction to be made between those two things, and I think these movies are quintessential examples of that difference. And I think it allows the actors to really play and breathe and show up in a lot of ways, whether they're smaller minor players or people in every single scene like Saoirse is, and she's just fantastic in this movie too. And the script itself is really great also. I think it's filled with a lot of the great like singular lines, but also really great interactions between characters also.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good material.
There's some good nuggets in there.
Yeah. I felt especially struck by the ending in this time around. In a way that I felt in the theater, but I think with a little bit of time and now being a parent as well, I think adds a whole interesting layer of context to this movie. Although I wouldn't say that the parent characters in this movie are exactly like, oh yeah, I totally see myself in like the dad, or I totally see myself in the mom. I think they're a little more like caricaturistic in a way.
I think they're also both supposed to be on opposite extremes.
Yes.
And I think that's to kind of show you kind of the two. They're supposed to be two very different parents that impact.
Polar opposites, yeah.
Yeah, that impact their child in two different ways. So I think that's intentional.
Definitely. It's definitely intentional.
Yeah, I mean, I found the parent characters to be, honestly, maybe it just, I like there's people, and not me personally, there's people in my life that can relate to these types of parents, and I feel like I can see, like, through their perspective, kind of, like, how they could relate to this movie and stuff, but, I mean, there are certain parts of this film where, the parents are being, more the mom, Laurie Metcalf, is being kind of an emotionally abusive person, and that's it's tough. I understand people's complaints with that in terms of seeing that, and maybe either people get triggered by that element of the movie, and it's hard for them to invest in that character and in the mother-daughter relationship. But I really love the parent characters. I think the dad is really good in it. I guess we'll discuss acting later though, but I like the parent characters a lot, but they definitely are like two extremes though. I could see that kind of being,
Yeah, and I you bring up a good point, because I think this movie feels a lot like a person who like finished her therapy about this time in her life, not to say that everything in this movie is autobiographical, because in the research, Greta Gerwig is pretty clear that like she was not a rebellious kid.
Yeah.
She was very much like straight down the line. A lot of the experience that she had were different than the ones portrayed in this movie. And I think that does show in stuff like the parent characters and some of the sort of complicated sequences in that way. But I do think that even though it is elevated, there is still a good sense of truth in there that I think is part of the reason why this movie hit so hard when it came out. Because we'll definitely get into that too. This movie was huge.
Yeah.
In 2017.
The big hit.
Massive.
Remember, it had the 100% Rotten Tomatoes score, and that was such a hype thing.
I have a point about that too in the trivia corner. So when we get to that, I'm definitely gonna make a point, because that's a whole nother layer of this of the legacy of this movie
Discussion,
I think is so crazy. So we'll definitely get into that also after we dig into a little bit more of the specifics. So now we can dive a little deeper into the movie, into like the real core of this, and let's go over like scenes.
Okay.
Miss, I know when we were watching it, you called out specifically the audition scene.
There's two scenes in this movie that stick out to me when I think about it. As like the audition scene is in so many movies. You know what I mean?
Of course.
Like the different people auditioning their different songs. Most of them
Going
are
up in
silly.
there and being like absolute wackos.
Yeah.
So like those are funny. I specifically thought Saoirse was really funny up there with her everybody just don't. She did a great job with that. But I think in regards to my favorite scene in this film, it's probably a lot of people's favorite scene, which is when right after Laurie Metcalf finds out that Lady Bird applied to New York schools right after graduation, and they're in their kitchen, and Laurie Metcalf, the mom, is ignoring Saoirse Ronan, Lady Bird, and Lady Bird is just screaming and begging her mom to talk to her and apologizing, and it's heartbreaking, that scene, because you feel the pain that Lady Bird feels and the guilt that she feels, and you feel the mom's disappointment that she wasn't told, but you also are just like also screaming at her in your head to just give her something, give her a hug, just give her a hug. So that scene is really powerful, the way they film it, the way that they don't show Laurie Metcalf's face. She's doing dishes, she's facing away from the camera, and all you can really see is the pain on Saoirse Ronan's face. And the two of them in that scene are absolutely incredible. And it was a really great, like, cinematography and directing as well.
Yeah, it was a good choice to let that scene just kind of play out as a take.
Yeah.
As opposed to trying to, like, break it up between, like, her coverage and, like, the master shot, and then maybe Laurie Metcalf coverage. It's so good that the camera kind of plays a little bit more like bystander for this moment as opposed to trying to get into it.
I agree. I think that scene, a big thing that sticks out to me in that scene is the score. I really like the composer of this film, John Bryan.
Yeah.
He's done a lot of cool stuff. He worked with Mac Miller on Mac Miller's last two albums.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
He basically finished the Mac Miller's official last album, Circles. So his touch on that. And then obviously there's just great movies he's done scores for. Like Paranorman. No, I'm joking. He did Magnolia and Punch Drunk Love. And Eternal.
PTA guy.
Yeah, PTA guy. And Eternal Sunshine. Which I really...
We'll get back to him, I guess.
Yeah.
Pretty soon.
The Eternal Sunshine score, like the main theme for that, is one of my favorites. So I really love the dread and kind of the way... It's like subtle.
It's kind of creepy.
Yeah, exactly. Because you're like, that silent treatment, Metcalf is giving Saoirse in that scene, and you're like, oh my god. And it's like at least for me, like I feel like that silent treatment, like a lot of kids can relate to that, like where, you just feel even worse and worse because they're not speaking to you. It's like,
yeah, it's a great trick too, because the whole movie is sort of predicated on the fact that the mother just like has to say all these bad, like, tough things to Lady Bird. So to sort of flip that around, I think it definitely feels like it's plucked right out of a real moment.
Definitely.
With that kind of person.
Well, and I mean, when we were watching it yesterday, I literally like had my hand on my heart because it hurt. And the first thing I said to Gabe is, I could never do that to my child. And I think, as a mother now, I watch these scenes and I think differently of them. And they strike just a different note for me in a way that makes the scene feel even stronger in a way. Watching it as both somebody who is the daughter of a mother and as somebody who is the mother of a child. So, yeah.
The scene that sticks out to me, well, there's like small scenes for me that kind of like accumulate throughout the film, and a lot of them are just like involving either certain lines or just kind of how the characters like act in like human ways. A scene where the priest, like they're talking, like they have like the kids that auditioned, and then he's like the first one to cry wins, and then he just starts sobbing.
Yeah.
Which really is upsetting. I don't know.
Well, you know,
like,
it's something so interesting about that scene is it almost plays as a joke the first time, but then you know, obviously they kind of reveal later on that he's actually depressed.
Yeah, and I feel like it's played like a joke because then like that scene is followed by like just, you know, the main characters like talking about it, and they're like high schoolers, so they're kind of like just kind of bullshitting about
have,
it.
Reverence about it, yeah.
Which I feel like is like a thing with this movie, is that there's kind of that bubble of being like a high schooler, and then like in the background there's these like small moments of like this is like adulthood, you know, and it doesn't come up to the surface very often because, you know, it's from her perspective. So, which is something I feel like coming of age movies should do well, and this one does it very well of providing that perspective. But yeah, that scene, and then the scene where I really like when Lucas Hedges kind of, he's, you know, he goes over to her in the coffee shop in the back, and he's like, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah.
And then he's like crying about it, and I feel bad for him. I mean, Lucas Hedges, I think he was good in this movie.
Yeah.
Some people don't like him.
We'll come back to
that.
Okay.
I liked him a lot in this
we'll
movie.
Get back to that.
I don't know if he works all the time in other films that I've seen him in.
Yeah.
And he, you know, but at this time he was like doing so much stuff, and I really felt bad for him because, you know, he's from like a very Catholic area and probably family, and now he has to deal with, you know, coming out to his parents and things. And
yep. Well, and I'll say I knew a lot of his character when I was in school, because I also did theater, and
true.
You know, and it was also high school, and there were a lot of people that were gay and were in, you know, out as gay, and I had a lot of those friends who were stuck and depressed about it and struggled. So that's a character that I think he did really well because it was familiar to me.
Yeah, and I think it was written that way too, where you can tell that Greta had a similar experience with when she was growing up and when she was going to school, that she had people like this in her life that had been dealing with these things.
Yeah.
I definitely think it's one of the more like informed characters in the movie,
Okay.
at least as it comes to the teenagers.
Yeah.
The main like speaking role teenage characters. Do you have a question, Miss? You're raising your hand.
I do. I know it's not a visual podcast, but I didn't want to be rude and interrupt you.
That's okay. I explained it verbally.
I wanted to go back to the priest guy, the guy who directs the musical.
Yeah.
I have a question about that. Because I feel like they show the scene where Laurie Metcalf's character is basically telling him he's sick, right? He's got some type of terminal illness, it sounds like. And then he's sitting there crying, saying he's alone, he's depressed. And then I feel like maybe I just like blacked out or something, but I feel like they don't show anything else for him.
No, that's it for him in the movie.
That's weird to me.
Well, like Sammy was saying before, this movie is not in the perspective of
Lady Bird.
Any other characters.
Any other characters.
That does kind of feel, you know, there's a little bit of a few times where the movie goes to the mother's perspective, or at least like whatever the mother's doing at that time in the day. And that's one of those moments where it kind of leaves it just for a little bit, leaves Lady Bird for just a little bit. And I think that was kind of the extent of what that character had going on. But I do think that's an interesting point, that they do just kind of leave that off.
Yeah, there's like no reason for it, I guess.
Yeah, I think there's a way to like read into it. Like read into it, like Santa Claus read into it with the giant binocular.
Or it could be as simple as there was like a deleted scene where Lady Bird finds out that he was terminally ill and it affects her.
True.
Like that's what it felt like to me. Like there was some scene they filmed after that and it must have been deleted. That's how unfinished that plot felt to me.
The original script for this movie was actually like 350 pages.
Yeah, it was very long.
Oh wow.
So if the movie was made fully, it would have been like 6 hours. So it's very possible that somewhere in there was more of a like cohesive storyline for that character that just didn't, didn't end up seeing the light of day.
Yeah, well, and it was like kind of jarring because it's this character that you kind of learn to love because he's so good with the kids and he's directs
emotional.
the musical and he's emotional and he's
And he gets that
funny.
great line after Merrily We Go Along where he's like,
Yeah.
they didn't understand.
Well, so like
funny.
you kind of start to really like this character, and then you find out he's terminally ill, and then you're like, wait, what happened to that guy? It's like
I thought he was just depressed, and then they were talking about him being depressed, but maybe he was because the mom works in a psych hospital,
that's true. Yeah.
not
Oh,
a
yeah.
hospital.
So it could be that
he
but,
still
like,
could be terminally ill, but I didn't perceive that for
Right, because they don't say what he has.
she
She's
does
just
say
asking
she works
him.
at a psych place.
Yeah, I thought it
Yeah.
was just that he's like suicidal or something.
So he might have just been admitting himself.
Yeah, that's
Could
what I
have been something
thought.
like that, maybe.
But
even
he
then,
could
like,
be.
Because then that
why?
would make sense that he'd be out of the
Well,
movie.
his son
'cause he'd
died of a drug overdose, so he's just like suicidal, maybe.
But like, why, like, put that in there? You know what I mean? Like, I'm just confused as to why this was in the movie because it literally affects nothing for the rest of the movie.
For me, I saw it in that moment with that the scene right before it or after it. I have it here. Yes, no. So the scene right before it is where. So I took it as like this is not really like I don't know if this is how it's intended, but like the scene before it, Lady Bird's. That's when he's talking to Lucas Hedges, and then he hugs him. She hugs him, and it's kind of like this moment where like Lady Bird's upset with him, and then she kind of like switches, and then is like more of a comforting character, and then like you don't always see that. You don't always see like her being just comforting because she's like a rebellious, angsty teenager. And then the scene following that is the one with the mom and the priest. So I took it as like, here's a moment where like both the mother and the daughter are like on the same wavelength of being caring individuals and really like that's like in their instinctual. They're just like that.
Interesting.
That's a good point.
Interesting.
That's how I took it though, but like I don't know. But it still doesn't answer the plot for your issue with in terms of like what happens to him. It doesn't answer that. But.
That's a good reading though, because if we think about like how the movie ends, like the very ending sequence where they're sort of mirroring her driving and her mom driving.
Yeah.
There's definitely a clear like idea behind the movie to try and compare these two people.
Yeah.
You know, this mother and this daughter, and how they are similar, how they are different.
Well, that's what even the dad says on when he says happy birthday and gives her the
little
cupcake.
cupcake.
He says they're both strong personalities, that they're alike.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think, and I think that's one of the strongest undertones of the movie is you can have so many problems, so much trouble, but excuse me,
Our dog is licking himself.
sir. We're recording a podcast.
Oh, he says he's sorry. It's okay.
I'll be sleepy though. Anyway, yeah, I think this movie definitely a lot of it has to do with the never-ending complexity of what you receive from your parents and what you're kind of naturally adverse to with your parents, and the way that those things are constantly like clashing and colliding with each other all the time.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, and the family dynamics is definitely a key part of this movie.
Yeah, I think that it's hard to make a lot of the scenes with the family like my favorite scenes.
Yeah.
Because there's such like an air of tension every
Yeah,
time
definitely.
they're in the same room, which is definitely purposeful. But I do think it makes it harder for me to be like, I loved the scene where she was like, I'm gonna, tell me how much money I owe you so I can pay you back and never talk to you again. Stuff like that. I do like the scene with Lady Bird and the father on her birthday.
Yeah.
Which on the one hand is a really nice scene, but also is like kind of horrifying at the same time, because this is after the Timothée Chalamet sex scene and that whole situation, and he's like, does she say she's 18 or does he say she's 18 now? Like it's her 18th birthday, I was just kind of like, oh no.
I forgot.
She was underage for the whole rest of the movie before this.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Oh no.
But Saoirse Ronan wasn't.
No, she
No.
was 23 years old. Let's be clear. Still weird.
I liked the scene with the dad where even after all like that fighting and tension because with his wife because he helped Lady Bird with her financial aid applications and all of that. I really liked that that when she did get her acceptance letter to her college, that he was like, all right, we have a mission. And they like went to the bank together and they like, he was like, if we refinance the house, if we do this, if we do that, like to him, nothing was more important than helping her achieve her dream. And that was just a really special moment for Lady Bird and her dad. And I do think that that's, you know, Laurie Metcalf as a mom, I think that was her mission the whole movie too. She just showed it in different ways. Like it was the little achievements that she could help her with versus the big ones, like getting her into college. It was like, you know, sewing her dress so that she feels pretty, or, you know, taking her shopping for prom, or like the little things she could do to help her daughter versus, you know, where the father was kind of hands off on a lot of stuff, but when it came to like the big things like college, he was all in.
Well, and it's a difference of priorities between the two characters too. I think the father is definitely more hands-offy, but is also more like she has her vision of her life, and I'm going to work with her on that vision.
Yeah.
Whereas Laurie Metcalf as the mother was a little bit more like, I have my vision of what her life looks like, and I'm going to vocalize those things to her and steer her in the direction that I think she should go.
Definitely, yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of the conflict comes, because, you know, being a rebellious kid, Lady Bird is very much like, I don't want to do it the way that you're imagining these things. You know, I want to do it my way. And then that's sort of how they get into all these like bickering arguments and we even forgot to mention the opening, which I think is so great.
Yeah, the opening is really good.
When they're in the car together, it feels like such a great encapsulation of exactly what you can expect from the rest of the movie. And, you know, with the humor of it, but also the real like emotional core of it, and, you know, the real crux of the story at the center at the very start. It's really smart screenwriting.
Well, and you can pretty much tell right from the start and throughout the whole movie that, you know, Laurie Metcalf's biggest fear is losing her daughter. And that's why she acts the way she does, and she feels like she needs to control and kind of manipulate Lady Bird's life to kind of go the way that she wants it to. And I think that's why she's so defeated when she realizes that Lady Bird applied to New York schools, was because at that point she already lost. She wasn't able to control her daughter and kind of, you know, like you said, gear her in a path where she wouldn't leave her. And I think that was kind of, you know, those are the kind of things that I think she was battling with when she did her lap around the airport after she drops Lady Bird off to go to college, and she's like still being so stubborn and angry that Lady Bird, you know, went against her and applied to New York schools. And then as she's doing a lap, I think she really, like, everything hit her all at once, and she realized, like, crap, I already lost. She's going across the country. I have to go get to her. And the fact that she doesn't make it to the plane is, like, so absolutely heartbreaking to me, that scene. It makes me cry every time.
But I'm happy she didn't go to the plane, because it's real. You know, it's like,
Very.
I would be upset if, you know, didn't end that. If it ended with, oh, hello.
Yeah.
Like,
well, and technically we don't see the two of them talk again.
Yeah, which was a very real, you know, way. I like that, because
Me too.
that choice. There's a lot of funny bits in this movie too. I just found it like a really funny movie.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
It is fun, definitely.
Like that whole audition scene.
Yeah, the audition scene, and then the scene where they're both listening to Beanie Feldstein, the best friend character,
Oh my
and
gosh,
they're listening to
she's
Dave
so
Matthews.
There's Beanie Feldstein. I mean, we'll talk about her when we talk about performances, but she is so good.
I thought she was really good in this.
Yeah, she brings so much life into every scene she's in.
Yes.
In a really great way.
Absolutely. And I don't think anyone else could have done that character.
No, not with the same sort
She
of...
owns it.
Yeah, with the same sort of energy that she does. And her and Saoirse have such great chemistry together. And I think it's both a testament to those two actors and also, like I was saying earlier, sort of the way that Greta Gerwig created the environment for them to really have a good time together.
Yeah.
And work their craft together in a fun and exciting way. So, is there any other scenes that we want to highlight before we move forward? I mean, there's a lot of scenes sort of in the middle of the movie where Lady Bird's being very rebellious and going
Well,
to
I like the
going to the house party, and
yeah.
I want to mention, not because it's like, I guess it's sort of funny but not super funny, but just the moment where Lady Bird and Beanie Feldstein character walk in on they go into the men's bathroom and walk in on Lucas Hedges kissing the guy. That reveal is so smart and so funny, but also brutal at the same time.
The way it's shot is really great.
Handheld, following them in. And you feel like on the ground with them, kind of making this realization at the same time, which is what we're doing.
And the way they turn around and it just stays on them, and they're just like kind of horrified. Like,
and then that like hard cut to them in the car, just like looking up at the sky, getting emotional.
Beanie Feldstein getting more emotional than Saoirse.
And about the teacher that she had a crush on.
Is that what that was?
Yeah, remember she has the crush on the teacher, and then the teacher has the wife with the pregnant wife. Yeah. That's why she's crying. She's like...
Oh, I thought she was just like feeling for her friend.
No, they both had heartbreak that night.
Aww.
In different ways. A little awkward, that subplot, but, that's okay.
Yeah, it's realistic, though.
Is it?
Well, yeah, a hell lot
I think
of students probably had crushes on teachers and things.
Here's the thing about this podcast that I think is really great. Sammy and I, as cis white males, can only go so far with this movie. Thankfully, we have my wife on this podcast to provide a female perspective.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Is that is that accurate, Miss? Would you say that there were people in your life that you would say were attracted to instructors?
I mean, I don't think anyone in my life made it apparent. I mean, there were always those girls that were like, oh my god, Mr. blah 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 is so hot. But like no one ever like actually like had a crush on their teacher as far as I knew.
Yeah.
I mean, they
would just say things.
I think it was just like little girls babbling about the cute guys in the room, whether they were teachers or not. But I never had like scandal like that when I was in school. That kind of started after my generation, I guess.
Yeah, that's a different conversation for a different kind of podcast.
Yeah.
That phenomenon.
The teacher, there was no... I mean, I'm sure there were inappropriate relationships between teachers and students when I was younger, but they were never, ever made apparent. So I wouldn't have ever even known it was a thing.
Interesting.
I think that's something within the past, like, maybe 10, 15 years.
Yeah. I also want to mention the actual scene of them performing Merrily We Go Along, which I think is very funny.
Oh, yeah.
Where they're just, like, it's such a, like, shoddy rendition of all the songs, and, like, the acting is so goofy. Just really great, like, clipped, pieced together kind of sequence of them performing, and everyone's reaction kind of be like lukewarm at best.
This is High School Musical theater.
Yeah, a little cringe, a little bit like, I'm still proud of this person, I guess. And then obviously after there's the moment of them crying in the car together. They sort of come back to it, and they're doing the bows, but Lady Bird's not giving Lucas Hedges anything.
Oh, yeah.
Which I think is also very funny.
And then the next play, which I think is one of my favorite funny scenes, is with the football coach.
Oh my god, I love that.
He's like, number 8, number 9, come to the front.
That guy's incredible.
He's so
what's
funny.
That guy's name?
Using like football plays to like get them to learn how to do a play.
Bob Stevenson.
Shout out to Bob Stevenson coming in.
Should we just talk about performances now since we're already here?
Yeah, there's not really much to say about like the origins or like the background of this movie. I mean, it's pretty much like Greta Gerwig wrote the script, shopped it around. Scott Rudin ended up producing the movie and sort of giving it the budget and platform to actually be what we see today. So, unfortunately, the man had a certain amount of taste in some form or another, but also fuck that guy. So I mean, that's really it in terms of like the background creation. Otherwise, for people that worked on the movie, it's a lot of craftspeople that Greta Gerwig had worked on in her acting ventures. Like the cinematographer worked with her on Frances Ha, and I forget what the other examples were, but similar sort of thing where she sort of just remembered names and went back to those people for her movie. So yeah, we can get into performances now. I think it's certainly clear that Saoirse Ronan is sort of like the the Oscars have Oscar,
the marquee,
and Lady Bird has Saoirse Ronan.
Yeah,
she's incredible in this movie.
She was great, and like that's kind of what I was gonna say. Is like obviously Saoirse Ronan and Laurie Metcalf, amazing, love them.
Yeah, it's uncomplicated to talk about them in this movie, I think.
Yeah, but for me, our girl Beanie Feldstein was my favorite performance.
Really? Your favorite?
I thought any scene she was in was made better because she was in it.
Wow.
And I thought even though she wasn't a huge part, she was the comedic usage.
Stop cracking your knuckles over here.
The comedic
it's
usage.
Supposed to be noisy, this household.
And I'm trying to talk about Beanie Feldstein.
No, continue, sorry.
Let the woman talk about her beanie.
About my beanie.
Beanie.
But I thought, like, the humor that they used with her and the writing for her and then her execution of it was just flawless every time. And I thought she played, like, best friend, like, just loyal best friend really well. She's definitely got golden retriever energy in this movie. And I thought she was hilarious.
Yeah, she gets a lot of great laugh lines, and her delivery does always sell it.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, she doesn't let a line kind of like drag in the mud or anything.
Yeah,
she is always great in these types of roles, like in Booksmart.
Very similar.
Very
she's
similar
basically
role.
She booked that role basically because of this movie.
Yeah, and she does this type of role so well, and I just adored her on screen in this film. So I would say she's my favorite performance.
Beanie Feldstein is really good. I think I like her way more in this than I do Booksmart, but I think I just don't like Booksmart as much as a film overall. So, but
it's a very different kind of movie too.
Yeah,
it's definitely trying to be this, but it's not.
Yeah, like she's similar. She's similar in Booksmart, but because maybe she's like the lead in Booksmart and a comedic lead, there's just like more.
It's too much.
Yeah, like it's like there's a certain way she's playing that character that's like I'm the comedic lead of this film.
Yeah, she also, her and
Caitlin
Dever, they kind of go back and forth between being the straight
true.
man and the comedic person. So they kind of go back and forth through that whole movie. So it does come off a little bit differently than this character in this one, which is strictly like, you get the emotional moments, but usually it's this character is just funny.
Yeah, exactly. Like this, I just found her more fun with Saoirse, with them being these just kind of couple of jokesters, and even the scene where she's like mad at Lady Bird, it's just like funny. I don't know, like it's just she plays off the characters really well and makes it very.
Yeah, she has a real sincerity that I think makes even a scene like that funny.
Yeah,
for sure.
And the scene where she like is crying and like Lady Bird comes in on prom night and she's like, humans or like some of us aren't built happy or something like. I was like, that's a brutal line, and she delivers it like perfectly. And I was like, wow, this is like really, like this is another human character. Like these aren't just like, in my opinion, I don't think like any caricatures of of that. Even though it is the supportive friend, which we've seen a billion times, but there's that human like touch to her character that makes it more than those cliches.
She's not just a ball of funny.
Yeah,
Right.
like she's like, oh, she's a person that's not, not doing anything on prom night, and she's crying about it. Like, that's probably something that a lot of other people did. Like they didn't go to prom and they just were sad and they're inside in their home.
Yeah, and to your point too, it's not the sort of conventional happy-go-lucky, goofy friend thing. Also,
Yeah,
it's like this feels like a actual human being.
yeah.
Well, and there's an undertone of depression throughout this whole film. Even with with the dad, it's there.
Mm-hmm.
Timothy Chalamet, it's there because his dad is dying of
I
cancer.
definitely want to talk about his character.
Oh yes,
The-
definitely.
The priest guy, the mom, like all of them, they've all got their kind of little bits and hints at it.
Yeah, and I definitely think it's a part of what makes the Sacramento location as a character in this movie. It makes it feel a lot more for anyone that isn't familiar with that area. It makes it feel like, oh, I could see why Lady Bird would want to get out of here.
Mm-hmm.
Like everyone here is just stuck and sad.
Yeah.
And also in the sense that like people just don't leave here.
Yeah.
At the same time also, which for us East Coasters is crazy to imagine, but I'm sure is very, very real in the East Coast, and I'm not sure to what extent it was for Greta Gerwig growing up, but I'm sure she had her own complex feelings with Sacramento that she used this movie to kind of alleviate. Now let's talk about
Wait,
what?
Sammy didn't say his favorite performance. He was just.
Is it allowed to say it?
Well, I thought we were discussing more performances. What are we?
I thought we were talking about our favorite performances.
Yeah, let's about to start talking about one.
Oh. I thought it was because Sam started talking about Beanie. I thought then he was going to talk about his favorite performance.
Oh no! I mean,
No, you were just handicapping Beanie, right?
yeah, I didn't have anything to say. I was gonna.
I'm sorry. I didn't. I ruined it.
God,
I'm
what
sorry.
episode? How long into this podcast are we?
I'm sorry.
I'm just kidding.
I ruined it.
So I wanna briefly go back to Lucas Hedges because I think you guys are both pro on his performance in this movie, right?
Yeah.
I'm pro.
Okay.
Pro.
How to say this? I think that Lucas Hedges has some serious talent in a very specific mode of acting that is not catered to this film.
Okay.
It definitely makes sense that he is an actual theater kid. I will say, I think that is part of the issue that I have with his performance and his character, and honestly, his performances in any other movie that I've seen him in.
What else is he in?
Mid-90s.
Yeah, he's been in a bunch of sort of like more independent stuff.
He was in 3 Billboards. He was in Manchester by the Sea.
Honey Boy, Waves, Boy Erased. A lot of Manchester by the Sea was the big one for him. He was in Grand Budapest Hotel very briefly, Moonrise Kingdom, but he was very young at that point. His first movie, Dan in Real Life. Shout out to that movie. That was a weird childhood movie of mine for some reason.
Yeah.
I think part of my issue with him is that he just can't quite lose that I'm acting to a back row that doesn't exist when I'm on camera for a film.
Mm.
And I think he kind of brings that to this movie in a way that feels pretty disconnected to everything else, especially when you look at it in contrast to like the Laurie Metcalf character, where they have that scene very briefly when he comes into the house. It feels like he's playing sitcom while they're playing like independent
so like too
coming of
showy,
age movie.
you'll say?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's too sort of I would say bubbly for sure, a little bit like I had a word in my head and then it escaped me. This is terrible podcasting. It's a little too big. I would say.
Can I counteract your point?
Sure.
So again, I grew up with these people, the theater kid variety, and I will say, as a former theater kid, I too used to exude theater kid energy frequently, all hours of the day. I came home from school, I was still a theater kid, exuding theater kid energy. So in my mind, he was really just playing his part. Like, especially when you're meeting your girlfriend's parents, what are you doing?
It's a lot of theater.
You're performing.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think my only counter issue with that is even in the moments where that person
Where they're intimate.
would have no reason to be performing for anybody. Like when he kind of breaks down to Lady Bird in the back, or even the first time in that grocery store when we sort of officially meet the character, when Saoirse Lady Bird comes up to him, he does kind of play soft in a way where like, oh, okay, so this character is just kind of awkward and like doesn't really know what's going on, and then suddenly, like, once you start to see him in the theatrical environment, suddenly he becomes like a very different character.
But I think
the more he sort of gets into the relationship of them.
But the relationship of them was also an act.
Yeah, but it doesn't. Well, that's the problem. It just the character felt like a completely different character before first meeting him, so it gave a completely different connotation of what this character is supposed to be. And in a movie that introduces characters so clearly and so well, like you completely understand who Lady Bird is and who the mother character is at the very beginning of the movie. And I think the movie does such a good job with like every other character about that, except for Lucas Hedges. And so I blame him.
Well, we're just going to have to disagree on this one, Chief.
I think that's fine. I think that's part of what makes podcasting special.
Sam, tell me why I'm right.
That's true.
Let's get started.
You like this performance.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's the same reasons. Yeah, I just think it's kind of an intentional thing because he's acting, and not only is because he's a theater kid, but also because he is, not at his true identity as a gay man. He's performing as the straight boyfriend to Lady Bird. So I like that performance. Should we talk about Chalamet though? That's kind of
yes.
I want to dive into Chalamet.
Let's definitely talk about Chalamet in this movie. It's a weird one. I mean, the year of 2017 definitely felt like the emerging year of Timothée Chalamet.
Oh, for sure.
He had been in like Interstellar before this and a few other things, but this year he bangs out this and Call Me by Your Name, and I think there was another one too. What was the other one? It was Hostiles and Hot Summer Nights, which is like
not really.
They're kind of whatever, but getting Lady Bird and Call Me by Your Name in the same year is insane, especially given how prolific both of those films were at the Oscars. It felt like Timothée Chalamet really hit the main line in terms of movie and film culture in a massive way. I think he's just very funny in this movie. Honestly,
no, he's very funny.
I thought a lot of his lines were just hilarious.
I think he brings that like period piece tinge to this movie in terms of it being in 2002. So he's got that like the time where like people are paranoid of the government and are becoming aware that the government is like this larger force. So he's like the phones are going to be in our brains, and like Lady Bird's like, what are you talking about? And
he sells it really well.
And then
he believed in Y2K.
Yeah, like all that shit. I like the part where he's like, I haven't lied in 2 years. And I was like, it's just so weird.
Yeah, he had good one-liners.
He did.
Kind of,
yeah.
And it's interesting. Like they hint at like his father having cancer, and it kind of explains a little bit. Ooh, sorry, our dog is growling in his sleep.
I wonder what he's dreaming about.
He's fighting someone.
Timothée Chalamet, probably.
He's fighting Timothée Chalamet.
Cool.
But they hint at Timothée Chalamet's father in this film having cancer. And he even says a line earlier, like, the universe is taking care of that, when Lady Bird jokes that she's gonna kill his family.
Oh, yeah.
But, so you can tell he's going through a lot, Timothy Chalamet. And, you know, there's that one scene where Lady Bird's leaving after he basically, like, lied to her and got her to have sex with him. And, you know, she's leaving from that experience, and she looks to the left, and there's Timothy Chalamet's father just looking ill in the living room.
Yeah, passed out on the couch. Yeah.
And again, that's kind of the last glimpse we get into that part of Timothy Chalamet's life. So it's kind of interesting, like, the way they do those types of scenes, but I don't know. I thought that his kind of F-boy attitude in this film was done so well. And when I think of Timothy Chalamet as an actor, I unfortunately think of him in this role. And for me, anything that he's in after this is just like a gauge on whether or not it's like his typecasted roles.
Yeah, it's kind of unfortunate because, you know, after the sort of like rumblings about his promiscuity in college and some of the paparazzi photos that have come out in certain relationships of his as becoming a celebrity, it's a lot of it kind of feels a little bit like this, where like he just gets around, and like all power to him, you know. He's a human being. He's, you know, he's got the charm, I guess. You know, it's not my cup of tea per se,
Jenner.
but it's, you know, it's a thing for some people, and you know, all power to them for seeing the attraction there. But it is a little unfortunate, considering how talented of an actor he is.
I don't really see it as an issue because I've really enjoyed a lot of his performances in terms of, even though they are on this spectrum, definitely they're not like dramatic departures from what he's doing.
It doesn't take away, from the roles that he's had.
But I could see, like, as he gets older, I think a lot of actors have like phases of their career, like the roles that Leo was doing in his 20s versus what he was doing in his 40s or 50s.
Oh yeah, it has to be.
Yeah, so I'm excited. I'm good with it now, and I'm excited for like what, because he does pick, like, he usually picks good filmmakers. He picks good, a lot of times the scripts he's working on are, you know, look at Dune or Little Women, another Greta Gerwig.
Yeah, I mean, it's like Gerwig.
He worked with Wes Anderson, French Dispatch. I love that.
Denis Villeneuve. You know, it's a lot of just talented people.
Yeah, so I'm excited to see where his career evolves into, you know, as he gets older and he's not as much of a... He may still be a sex symbol, I don't know. Or he may just get, like, weirder, or maybe he'll go more mainstream.
I mean, we have to talk about this again after we all see Wonka.
Wonka, yeah.
Wonka, the sex symbol.
That's true.
Where he could finally live out his dream of making a theater kid movie.
Yeah.
What do you know?
Wow.
It all comes around. My favorite performance is Tracy Letts as the father. Not just because... I felt this way when we first saw the movie too, so it's not just because I'm a dad now. But I think he... In a similar way to Beanie Feldstein, kind of bringing a lot of like heart to this movie, I think he is such a beating heart in this movie. In a way that I think is very needed when the Laurie Metcalf character feels so like acidic.
Mm-hmm.
He kind of balances things down in a really nice way. And it's not even that like he's too sweet, you know, because I think it is possible for the character to be like unrealistically, you know, like caring to his daughter. I think that they hit a really nice balance, because like Missy, you said earlier on, he's pretty standoffish for the most part. He's not confrontational. He doesn't like advocate for himself or Lady Bird when the mother's sort of going at either of them. So you can tell he's a bit of a pushover, but at the same time, you know, like we've said, he goes to major lengths, and you see the effort, no matter what he's going through subliminally on the side. Even though they hint at it pretty overtly in that bathroom scene with the pills, you definitely feel for that character in a way that I think adds a lot, and Tracy Letts brings a lot of levity and humor to a lot of the scenes as well that, again, are much needed because a lot of the family scenes are very just naturally tense because of the way that the family is. Yeah.
He provides a little bit of relief and a breath of fresh air.
For sure. For sure.
It's a very understated performance, and he's got kind of that dad charm too, where he's like, it's like, are you guys gonna get divorced? And he's like, we can't afford to. And I thought that was very like cute and
very
funny,
very silly in that way. Yeah. I'm excited to come back to him when we talk about Little Women in his brief little role. It's different, but it's still he's got a similar
very different.
He's got his same kind of Tracy Letts charm in that one. So I think that was a very solid, comprehensive description of the performances, and I think this movie lends itself so much to the performances. So I'm glad we had a nice, thorough talk about it. Do you guys agree that this feels like a really like acting heavy movie?
Oh yeah, it's what drives the film for sure. Because again, it's coming of age. It doesn't really have like a standard plot, so you kind of rely on the performances and the characters to drive the film.
Yeah, I wonder if part of that too is, obviously Greta Gerwig's acting background, that she wanted to have her first movie be something where, the actors can really cook.
Yeah.
I definitely think that's what comes.
Well, it's like you said, she creates that environment, and she's very, she's right there with the actors, kind of doing things with them and everything, and it seems like she's carried that forward throughout her minor filmography so far. But
she is one of the few people now that whenever you see behind the scenes, she's so involved and
they
so
like
on
having
top
good
of the
time
actors, and it's so clear that she's like really. And even when you hear her talk in interviews, but especially when you see her in these behind the scenes, either stills or videos, she's so like animated, and so energetic, and feels like a real like cheerleader for everything going on with her project, which I think is a really great energy, and why I'm very, very glad to be covering her on the podcast.
And Matt Damon was really good in this too. We didn't talk about Matt Damon's cameo.
We didn't talk about Michael Caine.
And Michael Caine.
Well, by this point, he was sort of on his way out a little bit, so he's getting older. So let's dig into the box office game.
Ooh, this is tough.
For context, I have my laptop directly in front of me, and Missy is directly to my right. My assumption is you have seen the answer to this question.
I really haven't. I'm like looking at your computer, but I just see like words, but I'm not reading what they say.
Wait, can you read?
I actually was never taught how to read.
Impressive.
This is a podcast exclusive.
I can only read in hieroglyphics.
That's cool.
Oh, shit.
Or Sanskrit, like with Florence.
I actually only read Hebrew.
Oh, that's cool.
So right
better than me.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Can read more Hebrew than
better than you.
Even though you two are the two Jewish people in the room.
What are you talking about?
Anyway, sorry.
Cloud is Jewish.
Cloudy. Well, no, Cloud's not Jewish because technically they take the mother's religion.
Yeah. Okay.
Are you his mother?
Yes.
Wow.
Anyway.
I popped him out of my sphincter.
Anyway, no, I didn't see the answer.
Okay.
And that's my truly honest response.
So let's do the box office.
Okay.
This movie has the lowest budget of any film that we've covered so far, obviously.
Yeah.
$2.
This movie was made on a $10 million budget. My question to you both, as per the usual, how much in total worldwide did this movie make?
I'm going to say it definitely made itself back and more. But I think even though it was highly rated, I'm going to assume it didn't make like a shit ton of money. Like my assumption, I'll say it made $50 million.
A nice straight number.
Yeah, like 50 million worldwide, maybe 55.
Well, 50 or 55?
Is it 50 or 55?
It's 53 and a half.
Okay.
Sounds good. Sam?
For me, I'm going to say... I'll go higher and say like 75.
75.
Just to be
$75.
different. Yeah, $75.
Quick question: in your own research, did you spoil the answer to this
No,
question?
I do not know the box office to this movie.
Okay. Since we've started the podcast, have you deliberately not looked at the box office? Because you know this is part of the game.
Are you accusing your brother of cheating?
Yes.
Are you saying I cheated?
I'm just asking you if you've cheated before.
No.
Okay.
What are you talking about?
What the?
I just want to get this off
Sam,
the table
should we
now,
walk out?
alright?
Are we
Should
doing?
we walk out?
Are we doing Roman Reigns tribal court or something? Or
No,
what's
no,
going on
no.
here?
Wait, so was the answer 75?
The answer is 78 million.
What?
986,000.
I swear to God, I didn't know that. I'm just good at this game.
He also
I'm
didn't
just
say
good.
78. He said
No, it said
75.
75.
Yeah, but that's extremely close.
Here's my thought. And listen, this is not like an indictment on either of you, but my only thought was I have this anxiety after we've done podcasts where I don't know if either of you have cheated on the question.
Well, you don't know
So I
if I've
just
done
wanna-
the research for that.
Right, because you've done research on the movies. I have my laptop in front of you every time we record this. So I'm just making sure.
Hey, I'll tell you what I usually research trivia and then other people's kind of input analysis on the films.
Okay.
I don't look at anything related to box office.
Okay.
Also, every time you've done like the super sneaky question and Sam knows the answer, he's like, I know the answer. Like, he will have no problem telling you if he knows the box office number.
That is true.
All right. I just want to make sure we.
I think
got
I'm just
that
good,
out
and
there.
you're just intimidated.
No,
Why don't
You're just
one
jealous.
time we'll make you play this goddamn game, and then I'll
Yeah.
fucking
Whoa,
see
whoa.
if you're accusing me as
Oh,
shit.
all right,
Yeah.
all right, guys. I
Cloud's
see.
getting upset.
Where's my severance package? I'm leaving.
Severance. No one's getting paid here. All
I
right.
get paid 5 little bites a
Literally.
day. You send 5 bags of little bites to my house.
I was
That's
gonna
my
say, aren't there
severance
only
package.
like 4 little bites per package?
Yeah, I know.
It's
So I
not
gotta
even
go.
gonna be 5.
I gotta do more than that.
All right, let's go into trivia corner now, because we got a lot of fun stuff to discuss. The first one, which I think is great, before filming this movie, the movie was actually scheduled to film earlier in the year in 2016, but ended up getting delayed because Saoirse Ronan was doing The Crucible on Broadway.
Oh wow!
Oh, cool.
I didn't know she did that.
Yeah, so she was doing stage work. It got delayed for like a few months. And what happened was the heavy makeup combined with the stage lighting caused some like eruptions of acne on Saoirse Ronan's face. And rather than covering it up, the makeup artist for the movie, Jacqueline Knowlton, and Saoirse Ronan herself convinced Greta Gerwig to leave the acne visible to make it a little more like a realistic portrayal of a teenager at that stage of her life and things like that, sort of making it a little more adverse to the usual kind of glossier coming of age dramas, which I think was a very smart choice.
Yeah,
And definitely adds a lot to sort of the look of the character, which is kind of like subtle, but still I think adds.
that's something I believe a lot of coming of age. I know they did. I think even to a higher degree in the film 8th Grade, another coming of age film. That
Feels very much like a response to this movie in a lot of ways.
Yeah. I remember me and you saw that
We
in
did.
theaters, but
That was a hell of a double feature. Do you remember what we watched after that?
Christopher Robin.
Yeah, we did. I like Christopher Robin just as much, honestly.
I don't know about that, but yeah, no, I think it should be just as we were mentioning before in terms of like this film avoiding certain cliches and making characters a little more human. Their skin is also a reflection of that because high schoolers don't have good skincare a lot of time. Well, they're going
Or
through
they try
hormonal,
to, but it doesn't really
yeah,
work
they're going
'cause
through
it's just too
hormones,
strong.
yeah. So
Absolutely.
they can't really take care of their skin.
I remember those days. Fucked up.
You know, there's no fake like look how pretty I look. You know, no acne at all. It's fake. It's not real, and it takes me out of the movie.
I had great skin in high school, but when I got to college, I had like like 10 years of acne all at once.
Damn.
Oh, look at me.
Maybe the stress just
I'm
ramped up.
busy. I didn't need braces. And my skin was
You didn't get braces either?
I didn't have
What
braces.
the-
I just told you though that the acne
going on here?
erupted when I turned like 19.
All right, I understand. But
is some
some of
bullshit.
us were in the trenches since the first day that we could have had acne. All right, I'm just saying, acne and braces, tough times.
Well, not everyone can be as flawless as I am. Until they turn 19, and then everything goes down.
It all goes downhill from there.
It all goes downhill.
Thanks.
As I always say, I
college.
peaked in high school.
Yeah. That's kind of what the ending of this movie is all about too.
Peaking in high school?
Not peaking in high school, but also like the reality check that is college.
Sure. Yeah, taking you out of your comfort zone.
Right, like even if you
Somewhat.
go to the place that you want to go to, it's still a shock.
Yeah.
Literally day one of her new dream school, she's in the hospital.
Vomiting in front of a guy, yeah.
All right,
It's a
next
funny
trivia
scene.
point.
On the DVD commentary, which is something that I wish was more of a thing still, Greta Gerwig says that Saoirse Ronan grew up Irish Catholic, and Beanie Feldstein grew up American and Jewish. So Ronan taught Feldstein the Catholic prayers that they had to recite in the movie, while Beanie Feldstein taught Saoirse Ronan the Pledge of Allegiance, which Ronan had never heard before,
Oh, wow.
despite being an American citizen.
That's crazy.
Wow, not even in movies?
Apparently not,
Interesting.
which is quite funny. A little tit for tat.
I like that.
Cool.
Eye for an eye makes the whole world not blind.
Okay.
Our next point. Greta Gerwig told Terry Gross on their radio show that she wasn't altogether sure where the name Lady Bird actually came from, and that it was, quote, one of those things that's so mysterious about writing. But that after she had written the script, she remembered a Mother Goose nursery rhyme. Lady bird, fly away home. Your house is on fire, and your children all gone. Gerwig speculated that the poem, quote, had lodged itself somewhere in my brain. Which is fascinating when you think about the sort of arc of the movie.
Yeah. So, that is, I guess, something that writers have that ability to, or just us as people do, to have that kind of subconscious awareness and make it involved in our writing, and that's very interesting.
Yeah, where you think of something random, but it's actually rooted in something much deeper from the past that you might not remember.
That's
Well,
how
it's-
Oh,
You go.
Oh. Sandwiches. I don't know.
Well, no, all I was going to say was
Is that
that...
the Frozen thing? We finished each other's. Sandwiches.
Anyway, what I was going to say... These two just crack each other up.
Good pod.
Good plot.
End now.
What I was going to say is I think that's a cool point because Lady Bird also never explains why she chose that name. Like, the character.
That's true.
Like, she never... At the very first scene, she tells her mom, my name is Lady Bird, and doesn't ever give any context throughout the whole movie as to why. So,
Yeah.
you know, I like that Greta Gerwig didn't try and come up with some weird random thing. She kind of just let it be.
Yeah, and I think the nursery rhyme is a great fusion, similar to what we were saying about the movie itself, is a great fusion of sort of the plight of Lady Bird as a character versus the plight of the mother.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the sort of fly away home is this feeling that Saoirse Ronan like doesn't want to be stuck in this place forever and wants to leave and escape, and she does. And then on the other end of that, you know, while she is there, the house is kind of on fire. You know, everyone's always kind of against each other. And when she leaves, she's in sort of a bad situation with her mother. So the house does kind of feel on fire in that way. And the children all gone, obviously, is sort of more the sentiment of the mother at that point.
Yeah.
Even though the brother and the girlfriend are still there.
Oh, yeah, they're funny.
Which is sort of like, you know, a whole side thing
Yeah.
about this movie. Next point. This is going back to what you were saying before, Sam, about Rotten Tomatoes. This movie temporarily broke the record held by Toy Story 2, which had 163 reviews, which were all fresh, of the best reviewed movie of all time on Rotten Tomatoes. Lady Bird received 196 quote-unquote fresh reviews in a row before getting its first round review, therefore no longer holding a perfect score. It does maintain a 100% rating from top critics, as far as this half-assed internet trivia was concerned. I'm not sure what it was posted. But still, this was, and this is the point I was gonna, that I was sort of alluding to before, this was the first movie to really use Rotten Tomatoes as a marketing platform. It feels like after this movie, every single film was like, certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah.
And that became like part of the marketing.
It really did.
Which is crazy. Because we haven't discussed this on the podcast, but Rotten Tomatoes is not really a very good metric for movie ratings. As long as a critic rates the film above a 60,
it's fresh.
It's considered fresh.
So you could
which
have
is ridiculous.
150 critics just think it's okay,
giving
it slightly above average.
Right, like mid. And it's 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. So, very, very interesting little piece of trivia and a little bit of like film history in there too. I'm sorry.
No, I was like trying to... My vocal cords popped out.
They gave out on you.
No, I think I just remember at the time, like, it just makes me nostalgic for when I was younger as a movie watcher. I really did, especially at this, when I was younger. When I was a youngin'. Like, I really did measure what I wanted to see a lot of the time through Rotten Tomatoes. I would check, especially in 2017, which was a time where, I was... really, I had ramped up in terms of trying to watch like a lot of big movies during the year, but I always checked Rotten Tomatoes scores, and I remember this movie being like, it was 100%, made me so much more hyped for it. And even if when I look at discourse for this film from years ago, a lot of people are like, that was good, but I expected so much more because of I saw the 100%. People really had such high expectations for this film, and then they watched it and they're like, oh, there's not really like a plot, like, why did this get such a high rating? And then you kind of... And that's such an interesting thing, because I think nowadays... I definitely, probably since 2018, or even after 2017, stopped looking at Rotten Tomatoes because I realized the metric was stupid, and that people place so much high importance on it.
Yeah.
And now it's kind of... Because it's promoted so much, I think there's still a mix of people that do look at the Rotten Tomatoes score religiously or make it, that's the major influential decision in terms of seeing a movie in theaters or not.
Yeah, I had a similar experience when I was younger, too, with Rotten Tomatoes. And I think that for people that aren't quite as familiar with, like, the industry of film, it's a lot more of a kind of, like, reliable source of information about movies. Like... And exactly what you're saying, like whether or not it's worth it to go see this thing.
Well, and I think that the reason why I didn't like Lady Bird as much when I saw it in the theaters was because it was so built up off of like Rotten Tomatoes and being the #1 rated movie on Rotten Tomatoes and blah 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 blah. So I was expecting to go into the theater and have it be literally the best movie I've ever seen, but it wasn't, and I felt kind of let down by it, and I think that's what soured it for me a little bit more.
Yeah, I mentioned it briefly before, but this movie kind of like hit like gangbusters in a lot of ways. It hit the scene and it was massive, and I think Rotten Tomatoes, the use of Rotten Tomatoes score was a massive part of that, because it did create a kind of hype in a way that
definitely
hadn't happened before, and now it literally happens for every single film that comes out throughout the year, which is crazy to think about. But this was definitely the kind of impetus of that.
Yeah, that definitely was a hallmark moment for Rotten Tomatoes and its image, and it's interesting. And then you get older, and then you start to realize you don't have the opinions that these critics have, and I just hope any listener of this doesn't look at Rotten Tomatoes and think like this should be my opinion. I think even if you're excited to see a movie, you're watching a trailer or something and you want to see that movie, the Rotten Tomatoes score is low, I would still give it a shot, because I think like you should form your own opinion on things.
Agreed.
Yes, 100%. I think that's a good rule of thumb, period. Not
True,
just for
yeah.
Rotten Tomatoes itself. I think...
With other people.
Yeah, if you see who's in the movie, what the movie's about, any of those things, and it looks interesting, just go see it. I think it's rare that a movie is like a full stop waste of time.
Yeah.
I do think that is rare, especially the further we get into this weird but also exciting time in movies, where at the very least, there's like an interesting idea happening, even if it's a little bit boring or dull. At least there's something interesting going on. That's how it tends to be for the most part with movies now, which I think is really, really exciting. And yeah, I think if you want to look at like movie ratings and scores and things like that, maybe Metacritic. I think it's a little bit better if you want to look at anything like that.
Sure, because it's...
yeah, I wouldn't use IMDb. I wouldn't use Rotten Tomatoes. Letterboxd can be good, but again, the audience for that app it's hardcore.
True.
It's movie fans who populate that site.
Yeah.
And app.
Metacritic gave Lady Bird a 93.
Oof.
That's pretty good.
That's high. That is high.
That's really good for Metacritic.
Yeah. So, hopefully that's a good food for thought for our listeners. Moving right along. The final look of the film emphasizes digital noise to create the effect of a Xeroxed copy of a photograph.
What does that mean?
So, you know how when you were younger and you had like... They weren't Polaroids, but they were these sort of like digital film cameras that you had to get like... You had to print out the pictures and stuff. And there's a lot of like fuzz and stuff.
Yeah.
That's what it's talking about.
You're mumbling. I literally couldn't hear half of what you said.
Well, I already made the point. You were just confused about it. I was just explaining it to you.
Okay.
I know, it's very good podcasting. Greta Gerwig said, quote, "I want this film to look like a memory."
Okay.
Which explains why she wanted to make it look more like still photography come to life. She originally wanted to film it with actual film stock, but it just wasn't in the budget. So she ended up shooting on digital, but sort of making sure that the final look was edited in a way to make it still look more grainy and as it says here, kind of photocopied, Xeroxed photography.
Gotcha.
Which I think does add a lot to this movie. It does, and along with the score that you were talking about before, which it does kind of give an almost like nostalgic sense.
I use the exact same word. Nostalgia is the perfect description for that.
Was that enunciated better?
It was.
I couldn't hear it.
Thank goodness. I'm so glad. My last little point of trivia was we've mentioned his character, but Stephen McKinley Henderson, the actor who plays Father Leviach.
Yeah, I have no idea. I don't think it's ever said.
I don't think so either. But the
musical director.
Musical director.
Yeah.
He actually does teach at Juilliard.
Oh.
So when they were filming those rehearsal scenes for the play with the cast, Greta Gerwig encouraged him to actually play some unscripted theater games that he does with his Juilliard classes with the actors. And the actors themselves were super excited about this because they were basically getting like a free course from Juilliard from a guy that actually teaches there on the set, which is why I think that scene is almost shot almost like in a documentary kind of way. It's like watching them kind of go through these things in more of a montagey kind of way.
You get to see a master at work too.
Yeah, and you definitely kind of feel a lot of the energy from that scene in the moment also, which makes a lot of sense given this this, and smart of Greta Gerwig to just let the guy do his thing. Also,
Yeah, like, you know your shit.
yeah, why
You got it. You know?
why pretend like we should just stick to whatever's on the script for this?
Yeah,
'cause they
exactly,
do it.
like-
Yeah, very very smart from that newbie Greta Gerwig. Maybe she's got something
Maybe
there.
she's got the goods.
Maybe. Should keep an eye on her. So that's Trivia Corner. Now we're gonna dig a little bit back into the acting momentarily to play our favorite game, movie star versus chameleon. I got it right this time.
Wait, what did you say last time?
I kept saying actor, like
Oh,
chameleon
actor versus chameleon. Yeah.
Every chameleon and movie star are actors. Who knew? This one's a little bit tough. I don't know if there really is any chameleons. I mean, Stephen McKinley Henderson, we just mentioned him. He's got like such recognizable features that I feel like it's hard to call him a chameleon, although he's done a lot of different things.
I agree.
So I guess he's kind of the closest. Tracy Letts a little bit too, because he's had a long sort of varied career also, and even between this and Little Women, he plays two very different characters, and they look very different too. And also to be in shout out to Ford versus Ferrari. Also, I was just reminded of him being Henry Ford in that movie.
Oh yes,
He does a great job in that too.
Yes, he is in that.
I forgot about that, but he does a lot of stuff, and I think he transforms himself in a lot of ways. I mean, this character is definitely different than any of those characters in those movies. So he might also be like the closest thing we have to a chameleon. I don't know, Miss. Do you think that there's somebody else I'm missing here?
I mean, I know Laurie Metcalf is a huge actress, and maybe this is just not having seen a lot of her her repertoire out there, but I can't think of any of her other roles. And is that because I haven't seen a lot of her films, or is she a really great chameleon?
Well, then you must not have seen The Connors or Roseanne, the two television
Her big TV
shows
show
that she
presence.
was,
Yeah.
Yeah, she's primarily a major TV actress.
Oh.
She was also in Big Bang Theory as Sheldon's mom, I think.
Yeah, Mary Cooper.
Yeah.
She didn't get invited back for young Sheldon, though.
Bam!
Bam!
I literally,
It's back.
I literally before when I was watching this movie, I was like, I am not going to bring up young Sheldon on this
here you
podcast, even though Laurie Metcalf is related to young Sheldon through the character of Sheldon in Big Bang Theory.
Yeah.
Sam was trying to make an actively good decision.
I'm proud of you, but also unnecessary.
You just enabled me to continue this. No, I'm not going to bring it.
Yeah, she's just been in a lot of television, essentially.
See, she was so good in this film that I just assumed she's like a movie actress.
Yeah, I mean, she's been in
movies,
a decent amount of films, but she's done a lot of like voice roles, like in Toy Story, she plays Andy's mom, and she was in Meet the Robinsons. She's done a lot of like voice stuff, and also doing like sort of one-off roles in assorted television shows like Malcolm in the Middle and Frasier and things like that.
Oh, Frasier.
Brief stuff. Yeah. And she's just generally been around for a really long time, since like the 70s or 80s. So she's got a large body of work, and I do think she definitely comes alive as a film actress in this. But I wouldn't say she's a chameleon though.
No, and Saoirse is not either.
She's definitely not.
She's very
movie star.
Yeah.
She's very movie star.
Timothy Chalamet's movie
star. Definitely movie star.
Beanie Feldstein
definitely. Lucas Hedges.
He's not famous enough to be
He's not
either.
a chameleon, but I wouldn't call him a movie star.
Like, he's done different things. Like, his character in mid-90s...
definitely different than this.
Which, is more of an aggressive and kind of this older brother.
Alpha male-y kind of dude.
Yeah. But I honestly, this is like the one movie where his performance like worked more, and at other stuff he's done, he wasn't as good. So I wouldn't even. Yeah, I would call him neither as well.
Yeah. Just looking up the cast a little bit more. and this will be the last one because I don't want to be just like going through the cast list of this movie.
Everyone.
But Lois Smith, who plays the like head sister of
Oh, yeah.
of
The one
school.
whose car they decorate.
Yeah, she has that great scene where she just like cooks for like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
For Saoirse, and this is a great time. I don't really recognize her in these other movies, but she might be a bit of a chameleon too. The Nice Guys, Minority Report.
Oh, she was in that.
Twister. She's been in like a million things.
She's been around for
Forever.
a long time.
Forever. 50s, 60s
Yeah,
were
she
her
was
first roles.
with James Dean here.
A
And
little bit of Ed Sullivan in there. Yeah, this is crazy. She was in 5 Easy Pieces.
she may be a
Thank
chameleon.
God. Maybe. I'm willing to give her the benefit of the doubt.
Lois Smith at the ripe age of 93.
Thank you, Lois Smith.
Thanks, Lois.
Thank you for everything you've done for.
Thank you for your service.
For the film and television world. Let's get into some hot takes.
Woo!
Let's get into some hot takes. Do you guys have any glaring hot takes about this film?
I don't know. I'm not good at this game. I don't ever have hot
Well, you don't
takes.
really like the movie a lot.
Well,
so...
I did like it the second time around.
Okay. What's your rating? What would you give it out of
did you change your rating?
Because I checked your
I-
letterbox before the podcast as per my research.
I don't think I rated it on Letterboxd, did I?
You did.
I did? What did I give it?
2.5.
Oh.
2.5?
Yeah, I think you
No,
go
I
higher.
would definitely go up.
Whoa!
Yeah.
I would definitely go up to probably like a 3.5.
Wow,
now.
that is
Okay.
low.
Well, like I said, I
You
think
said you didn't like it that much the
the
first time.
first time I wasn't crazy about it, but I liked it a lot more.
Interesting.
The second watch.
Interesting. I didn't realize it was that low. I gave it a 3.5, and I think that's still where I'm kind of sitting with it.
What are your other negatives, if we want to go through hot takes?
Yeah,
in
if we're
terms of,
talking
like,
hot takes.
Like,
I mean-
what are your, besides Lucas Hedges' performance, what held it back for you to getting like 4 or above?
I mean, he's kind of the major example of
Yeah.
some of my like character-based issues with the movie. You know, I think it's a testament to like the strength of kind of like the primary characters of Saoirse Ronan, Laurie Metcalf, Tracy Letts, and Beanie Feldstein. I think those 4 get a lot of attention, whereas I think the rest of the characters don't really like.
Okay.
You know, like the Jenna character, even like the brother and the girlfriend.
Yeah.
They all feel very much like caricature pieces
Mm-hmm.
of a world for the sake of building out a world. And I think it's clear that they kind of try with the brother and the girlfriend characters the most, actually, in terms of like, you know, oh, maybe they are real people, but it doesn't quite
Well,
get
especially
there.
the girlfriend.
Yeah, especially the girlfriend.
Yeah.
Oddly enough, but yeah, it doesn't feel like all the pieces there really come together in a way that feels as genuine as the rest of the characters in this movie, and also just as a sort of general thing, I'm not a huge fan like how this movie looks for the most part.
Like it's shot or...
It's kind of like, and this is sort of what I was saying earlier about like how it's, you know, it feels to me the most like a first film, in the sense that the visuals are kind of uninspired, I would say. And I think that changes obviously quite a bit with her next 2 films.
Mm-hmm.
But starting off here, I think it gives off the most like, this is my first go, so let's just, you know, let me focus on what I know, which is sort of like the performances and the writing and directing actors,
Okay.
as opposed to sort of creating a real like visual style. I think having that kind of moody, nostalgic graininess does help in a big way. But I think in terms of like scene construction,
Shot
like
composition.
blocking, yeah, what is sort of like set into a frame, I think there's no, I don't like to say there's more that could be done, because I don't like being backseat director, you know, like something like that. But I'll just say that the images of the movie are not the memorable part of it.
Okay.
You know, so I think that kind of takes away a little bit from me. That's probably my hottest take.
I don't
honestly.
know, in terms of hot takes for me, because I'm very high on this movie, so I don't really think I have any, really, because a lot of people are high on this movie as well.
Yeah,
so
we should call this lukewarm take central over here.
lukewarm.
Or we should just call it our letterbox ratings.
Oh, so you just like give up on this entire segment for future
No, I like this
podcasts?
segment. I think I just need
I think
a movie that I
certain-
don't like as much could make it more effective.
I think certain movies. I mean, it could be a hot take that's like positive. I don't know.
That's what I'm thinking of right now. I'm thinking of like any their hot takes that I think are positive. But I don't even know if it is the best Greta movie, because that would be like a hot take maybe, but not.
Oh,
even.
that would definitely be a hot take.
But
Calling Lady Bird
Yeah.
the best Greta Gerwig.
but I don't think it is. I don't think, 'cause I think it's her second best probably. But
We can talk about that.
yeah, that's a later discussion.
As we get
but-
further, yeah.
So yeah, I think it's just a great movie.
Well,
That's my cold take.
I just changed my letterbox rating.
What'd you change it to?
3.5.
Well, look at
Okay,
you.
so
Yeah,
then-
changing letterbox ratings. Okay.
I'm a changed woman.
Another
see.
letterbox / LilliHouse exclusive.
Podcast
Happening right
exclusive
now.
letterboxed review change.
The next, sorry, I didn't mean to make
Oh,
that
it
such
just
like
came up too.
an abrupt transition. But this is a weird one. How old should our child be before they watch Lady Bird? That's a weird one.
16, 17. Because there's sex in it, drinking, drugs.
Yeah, I mean, I also think in terms of relating to what's happening in the movie, I think it's better to watch it probably around the time where the character is supposed to be or later.
I think it's most effective if you can also understand the parent's viewpoint. So I would say maybe like 17.
Yeah, I think it helps, but I think the perspective, obviously should be like, if this movie works best if you can identify with how Lady Bird feels, in certain cases. Obviously she's kind of like an extreme character in certain ways, so it's not going to be a 1-for-1, of course, but just to be in that same kind of place in life on its own, I think is enough. Which is funny because I think usually it's like, this movie's got a lot of like violence and sex and things in it, so they should be older to watch this, especially coming out of the Christopher Nolan series.
Yeah.
Where we're kind of like, none of this is going to make any sense to anybody
know,
under
the concepts,
25. So this feels like a very different kind of explanation for this.
Yeah,
You
I think.
agree with that?
Oh yeah, no, I definitely agree. 17 or 18, because that's just thinking about when I saw it. I was like a year. I mean, I was in my junior year of high school, so it was definitely
Like
something.
16, 17.
Yeah. So it really hits. I mean, when I remember just being in high school, and whenever I saw a high school movie and watched it, it just like had this like profound effect on me, even if the movie wasn't great for some reason. And I think it's just because I was in that bubble with the characters. And then when you get past that point, like, you look back and you're like, you just have to kind of appreciate the movie on its own. It doesn't have this kind of like spiritual connection as much sometimes. But I think it's perfect, definitely, just like you said, just to wait until they can relate to these things, because it'll just be a lot more of an impactful first viewing experience than if you're like 13 or 14, you're not in that zone yet.
Wow, high schoolers are weird.
Well, and Lady Bird isn't even that young. She's a senior in high school.
She's at the
Yeah,
end.
So
17,
she's 17,
turning
18,
18,
which is when we also think people should watch this.
Right. Yeah, I think that's the best way to make the movie a rewarding experience, which I think is a lot of the strength of the movie. Now, speaking of rewards, let's talk about the Oscars. So the 2017 Oscars is a very, very interesting one. Let's open up the Oscars. I want to first start off the conversation by mentioning that this year also saw the emergence of another very exciting and promising filmmaker.
Guillermo del Toro?
No. No, we'll come back to him.
Oh, okay.
In a different miniseries. The one and only Jordan Peele.
Yes.
Who made massive waves in a similar way to Greta Gerwig, where he comes out with, and we'll do a Peele miniseries eventually, because his movies are very interesting in a variety of ways.
Oh, for
But
sure.
he comes out with this very unique, different kind of horror movie that similar to Lady Bird hit like huge.
Yeah,
huge,
it broke new ground.
Arguably, Get Out hit even harder than Lady Bird in terms of like the cultural zeitgeist.
Oh, for sure. It's changed horror, in my opinion.
Period. For sure. 100%. And both of these movies, kind of had similar receptions at the Oscars. They were both, they both made their way into Best Picture. They both got nominated for Best Director. Let's see, is there any? I mean, Daniel Kaluuya gets in for Best Actor in Get Out, and then Saoirse Ronan gets in for Best Actress in Lady Bird. It feels like supporting is basically the only one of the main bunch that doesn't also get included. But the big difference in original screenplay goes to Jordan Peele over Gerwig, which is very interesting.
I think that's a tough one, but I would agree with the win.
I would agree with the decision as well.
Yeah.
I both movies are so interesting in their own ways, but I do think that was the right choice. I don't know, Miss. What do you think about the sort of overarching storyline of this Oscars?
I mean, I agree with a lot of them, like, Darkest Hour, Gary Oldman.
Yeah, you're pro Darkest Hour, right?
I'm pro Darkest Hour. I loved Phantom Thread. That's one of my favorites.
Very great movie.
Amazing.
I wish
amazing
it won
movie. Oh
anything.
my god. Yeah, they don't like PTA for some reason. I don't know why. He got nominated for Best Director at least.
Yeah, he hasn't had his moment.
I mean,
yet.
That's really my only PTA
so weird,
movie
though.
that I like. But
That's so weird.
I think that Lady Bird should have won something. The fact that it didn't win anything at all is just baffling to me. But I really couldn't tell you what I think it should win over all of these other crazy, amazing movies like Get Out and Dunkirk and Darkest Hour and Phantom Thread and
Shape of Water.
Like, what a crazy, crazy Oscars.
Yeah, this
Three
was...
Billboards. That was a crazy one, too. Frances McDormand won for that.
Yeah.
So, I think Lady Bird is a pretty good movie, but I wouldn't say it's better than a lot of these.
What do you guys think about the Best Supporting Actress win? Allison Janney's I, Tonya versus Laurie Metcalf, because that was kind of the narrative going into that Oscars, was these two these two like harsh mother characters kind of colliding, and Allison Janney ends up winning the day, which I think is bizarre.
I answer your question with the kind of a metric, which is not always like in my brain, which is not really fair, but I remember one performance over another, and that's Laurie Metcalf's performance.
Right.
I don't remember. I watched I, Tonya, but maybe it's also because I, Tonya as a film isn't as good.
It's not great.
Not nearly as good as the quality of Lady Bird. So I think Metcalf could have taken it there. I mean, it's a stacked year, but the category itself isn't particularly like, wow, like anyone could have won. I mean, I think they're all great, but Metcalf could have taken that one.
Yeah, and I think there was a lot of surprise that she didn't.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think this movie has a bunch of, conventionally Oscar-y moments for her. And I think the Allison Janney performance similarly has a lot of moments like that. But that's kind of all it is.
Mm-hmm.
From what I recall about the movie. I'm kind of like, yeah, this movie was kind of whatever. And I don't remember anything about it, really. Except for the moments where Tonya Harding is ice skating and, like, her body's CGI'd, so it looks like her head is in a different body than the rest of her body. Very bizarre. But Yeah, I think that was a weird choice to reward I, Tonya over Lady Bird there. The Frances McDormand win, I think, was kind of like written in the stars from the beginning of that Oscar race.
Yes.
I think there was a little bit of thought that like maybe Sally Hawkins gets in there for Shape of Water. There was a lot of love though for Saoirse Ronan in this.
Yeah,
movie.
there was. I think there was a push for her, but I think it really was McDormand's year when that movie came out. The way she commanded that movie.
Yeah, I mean that was certainly a tour de force performance in a very complicated film, but it was undeniable that she brought a lot to that film and to that character. Sam, is there anything
Category wise?
Yeah, that you would give to Lady Bird over whatever actually won? Because it was nominated for 5 Oscars, didn't win any of them.
Yeah, like we talked about, there's just this year is just so stacked that I'm going through these categories and I don't know. It's tough. Like, because Get Out that year was my favorite movie of the year, and Phantom Thread was also higher. So those 2 movies, I wish Phantom Thread won more, like we said, but Get Out also, I think, was just so great. So it's tough. I don't know. I don't think there is anything. Maybe just the Laurie Metcalf for Best Supporting Actress, but in terms of Best Actress, I think that was McDormand's year. Best Picture could have gone to a lot of things, but I'm happy that it went to Shape of Water. And Director, too, was just really stacked.
Yeah, Director is crazy this year.
Yeah.
Del Toro ends up winning for Shape of Water and sort of predicates the eventual Best Picture win for that movie. But you also get Christopher Nolan for Dunkirk, Jordan Peele for Get Out, Gerwig gets in for Lady Bird, and then PTA for Phantom Thread.
Yeah.
God, that's crazy.
That's really
what an amazing stack of artists.
Amazing directors there.
God. It's one of those moments where you look at it and you're like, finally, the Oscars got something right.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to Paul Thomas Anderson, because they don't really care about him as much. It's very, very crazy Oscars. And to have The Shape of Water win over these sort of more conventional kind of movies was crazy. You'd think that even something like Lady Bird would have a better chance conventionally at winning the Best Picture Oscar than Shape of Water, but somehow it ended up getting through. And even after the Golden Globes, because I remember 3 Billboards winning the Globe for Best Drama, and everyone kind of being like, oh. All right, well, this isn't very interesting. The thing is sort of like slowed down in terms of the race. But then Shape of Water starts winning, and you're like, whoa.
Yeah, Shape of Water definitely was a sneak. I didn't expect it to win Best Picture. I didn't expect Guillermo to win.
I think I had it on my ballot just
director.
because I loved the movie.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't think this is going to happen, but...
A lot of people look back at this year's Oscars, though, and think Shape of Water should not have won. And maybe that's,
Yeah, I'm surprised by how much people don't like that movie, honestly.
Yeah.
It's weird. I don't really get it.
Because of a weird, sea creature, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah.
Do
they feel put out
not
by
accessible,
the
They're like,
romance?
why is this monster in a not monster movie? It's...
Maybe.
They
didn't get the romance.
They didn't get the message of it, no. I think people watched it with an immature viewpoint. It's very quirky. It's a quirky movie.
As Guillermo del Toro is.
Yes, and I think that's something that people only really started appreciating.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And I also think, too, that a lot of the other films that were nominated for Best Picture have kind of stuck in the public consciousness for a little bit longer, also.
Definitely.
Like Call Me By Your Name, Get Out, Lady Bird, obviously. I think those movies have really stuck around a lot longer than The Shape of Water has. So it's a little bit harder to look back on that movie and be like, oh yeah, good choice,
I think, and then just hiding in that Best Picture category is just fun. It's just to look back was The Post, Stephen Like, a Spielberg movie came out this year, and it literally doesn't even... It's, like, probably the least talked about movie from this Best Picture category. And I think
Honestly.
I didn't even see that movie.
It's so funny. I saw that in theaters, I remember, with Mom and Nana, I think, or Uncle Larry. I don't know if you were there, Gabe, but...
I don't think so. I don't remember seeing that movie.
Yeah.
So...
It was fine.
The Post is the only movie I didn't see on the Best Picture list. There's usually multiple that I'd never seen, but in this list, I had seen all of them except for The Post.
Yeah, me too. I mean, this was the first year that you and I were dating, and I remember seeing a whole bunch of these movies, either with you or sort of on my own, but around you.
Thanks, movies, for giving us date opportunities. Yeah. Now we're married with a baby.
The Phantom Thread experience in particular. You know, maybe one day we'll come back to it with PTA, but that was a good time.
Yeah, I think Phantom Thread was one of those movies where Gabe was excited to show it to me because he loved the director. And I think it was like, I wanna show her this movie because I like it. And I don't think he was expecting me to like that movie as much as I did. And that was kind of our first opportunity of me enlightening you to movie scores in a different way as well.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Cause
we'll have to do a PTA. I actually don't really like PTA as a director, but I love Phantom Thread. But we can still do a series just so that I can get to watch Phantom Thread and talk about it.
Yeah,
the PTA series will definitely
for sure
happen.
100%. Don't worry, I won't pick licorice pizza.
Yes,
licorice pizza.
I have my issues. Anyway,
it's for a different podcast. All right, let's cap off this very fun conversation. I hate to call the end, but we've reached the end here with some life lessons from Lady Bird. Is there any sort of like major overarching life lessons? Because this movie feels very like
life lesson-y. I mean, I think a major one, which just, you know, at the end of the film is, or not that, the scene where she's talking to the nun, the head of the nuns, and you know, the head of the nuns. Not good with Catholic school lingo. Lead nun, master nun, master of none. Yeah, but when she says love and attention, like, aren't they the same thing? Like, that whole thing, yeah. Like, I think that's like a life lesson I take away, is that if there's like a place that you kind of like, you know so much about, especially like hometowns, like you know so much about that place, and you may like think you kind of hate that place, but part of that hate is like that, you know, that you hate it, but because you hate it, you also find your way to like actually loving that place, and these things don't really occur until you leave, you know, that place.
You experience somewhere else.
Yeah, so it's very relatable feeling for a lot of people, especially if you just like leave home. Maybe some people, not everyone, but you know, for people that leave home and they go far away, and you realize like, wow, like I was taking that for granted. So I think that's obviously one of the most obvious life lessons.
Yeah, for sure. And I think in general, I think that can apply to the relationships in the movie too. Mm-hmm. I think the concept of distance making the heart grow fonder, I think applies to not only Sacramento for Lady Bird, but also for her mother.
Yeah.
Which is what makes that final scene of her leaving that voicemail so potent. Our dog is making more weird noises in his sleep.
Sounds like he's doing like when you like brush your teeth and you like gargle.
Maybe he's brushing his teeth in his dreams.
Very nice,
good
buddy.
for you, Cloudy.
Good job, buddy.
Does he know how to brush his teeth?
He definitely doesn't.
No.
Does he know how to brush his teeth?
I don't know if he put it in his hand.
Every morning we look in the bathroom.
He doesn't have hands.
Whatever.
My life lesson is that dogs brush their teeth. Wow. There was a random dog in this movie. I don't know if you caught that. She just had a dog in her lap at one point. Maybe
the dog shows up
animal.
Briefly in other scenes too. It's just a very small dog.
Oh, that's my favorite performance. I forgot to mention.
Oh, the dog.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. We should have a best dog award that we present.
Well, so my actual life lesson, I'd say, is, you know, throughout this whole movie, I was thinking it during all those scenes that had a lot of tension with the family. But I would say, you know, you're allowed to be angry at people, you're allowed to fight, everybody has that right. But I think when it's your family, you know, even if it's not resolved yet, you should still, you know, at night when you're going to bed, hug and kiss that person and tell them you love them. That doesn't mean that your fight is resolved. That means you still have a lot of work to get through what you're getting through. But, you know, always kiss and hug each other goodnight and tell somebody that you love them, because, you know, you never know if they're going to fly off to college and you're going to miss sending them off on the plane. And I think those are the, you know, or worse in other life cases. But, you know, I think it's just, especially as a parent, I think my goal is to not play it the Laurie Metcalf way. And, you know, I'm sure I'll fight with my children, but I'm going to make it a goal to still tell them I love them and kiss them and hug them goodnight every single night, so that they know that even though we're fighting, I still love them. So that's something that I thought about when I finished watching this movie.
My only other life lesson I would say is if your new friend takes you to a parking lot in the middle of nowhere to hang out with some other people that are just kind of like smoking and sitting on their cars, you know, maybe they're not the best crowd after all. You know, maybe they're not actually that interesting of people.
From one parking lot to another parking lot.
Oh, yeah, I like that.
She even like says something about it, and it's still like she still kind of goes along with it for a while. So yeah, you know, maybe just like stick to your first intuition about it. You know, you probably could have saved yourself a little bit of trouble.
Ain't wrong. Ain't wrong.
But you know, we sometimes we have to go through those unusual experiences to learn something new about ourselves.
Yeah, and also don't leave the toilet seat up.
Yeah, that was what I got from this film as well.
That's my first note.
Yeah. Don't, if you only have one bathroom in your house, make sure the lock works, so your mother doesn't barge in on you while you're trying to have a towel moment.
A towel moment.
Yeah, I don't know.
A towel moment?
I don't know what Saoirse Ronan was doing in that scene.
I don't know.
She was just like raiding the medicine cabinet.
Well, it was right after the first time she ever had sex. So she was like in the bathroom, probably like looking things up and like trying to figure out her body in that moment.
It was 2002. She doesn't have like her cell phone to look stuff
but wasn't
up
she looking at like a magazine, or she was looking at something? I forget what it was. We'll have to do another rewatch. But, you know, I think that was fine.
That's a good way to cap things off, I think.
It was fine.
It's fine.
So, I hope you all enjoyed our first foray into the films of Greta Gerwig. We have a lot more exciting conversations to have about the rest of the films that she's directed. You know, 2 major heavy hitters coming up. We're going to be delving into some other directors in the meantime, but I, for one, am very excited to jump back in with Little Women and Barbie. Especially after a little bit of time away from Barbie, I think it'll be really interesting too. Mm-hmm. But we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. In general, I'm just really excited to rewatch Little Women as well.
Yes.
Because
I haven't seen that in a long time.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting to rewatch it this time around, reassessing her career so far.
Yeah.
Because I remember thinking about it at the time, but now with even more context, it's such an incredible upgrade from this movie to that one. So I'm really excited to talk about that film especially. Yeah, and with Barbie too. But
I'm excited to talk about Bob Odenkirk. I can't wait to have a chance
My
to just...
dad!
I can't wait to... I can't wait to have such a, you know, just to be able to say his name and speak on him is just it's a privilege.
Yeah, honestly, I don't know when we'd have another time to discuss him in this podcast, so I'm very excited to do that. Mrs. getting embarrassed. I don't know why. I'm just spitting facts over here.
Spitting factuals.
Oh, you're just tired. All right, well, we're going to go to bed. And to you, the listener out there, thank you so much for spending some time with us here at LilliHouse. I hope you also go to bed. Get nice and cozy.
Here's a
under your warm
hug
blanket.
and a kiss, and we love you.
We're just your parents now. And
Sam as well.
And Sam's here too.
I'm
all
here
three
too.
of us are. All three of us.
We're all your parents.
I'm a parent.
Wow. What do you know? I hope you all enjoyed this very unusual episode of LilliHouse. Tune in next time where we'll talk about a different filmmaker and eventually loop back around to Greta Gerwig. But in the meantime, have a great day.
Bye.